Good morning and welcome to another episode of Bold Business. I'm David Grassa from Gen FKD, a nonprofit dedicated to helping millennials navigate the new economy. Back on the show today as my co-anchor is Morgan Ortagus.
Oh.
So exciting to have you back.
Thank you.
You gonna stay forever? You gonna stay forever?
Forever and ever.
Forever and ever and ever. I think we're joined at the hip now. You know, two Floridians hosting a business show in New York. You know, so it says here you're a financial intelligence expert. What does that mean, Morgan?
It means that I make a lot of money.
Oh.
Just kidding. I've worked in the public and the private sector on financial matters. So worked at the U.S. Treasury, worked here in New York in finance. So.
Well, you got something to teach us then, huh?
Absolutely.
And a little birdie told me you had some fun in the snow over the break, and we actually have a clip of that if you could play that. So now we can tell you're from Florida, Morgan.
This is what happens when Floridians try that, yes. And the crazy thing is I learned how to ski. I took lessons, and I thought, oh my God, and I grew up water skiing. I don't know if you did in Florida.
I'm not even that advanced. I tried to water ski, but I did it unsuccessfully.
I was water skiing at like 5, 6 years old, so I wasn't falling in the snow. I thought I'm doing good, and then I forgot that I'm not 5 years old. I was with the kids. I'm 35, and so there you go. That's what happens when a Floridian tries to sled.
And Morgan, I've fallen plenty of times in the snow. There is just no video of it.
I just embarrassed myself in front of the world.
In front of the world. Well, welcome, Morgan. And
Thank
we
you.
are going to kick off headlines. You ready for headlines?
Absolutely.
Let me finish taking my sip of water from my bold mug and let's get going. Our first headline comes from NPR and is about how millennials may not be as entitled as some may think. That's good news, isn't it? The article touches on a few reasons why millennials actually have it harder than previous generations because of financial challenges and paradigm shifts, among other things. So, Morgan, have we been dealt a bad hand?
Are
you a millennial? Yeah, you're a millennial, right?
Excuse you. Yes. As Carrie Sheffield, the founder of Bold, likes to say, I'm a grandma millennial. So I think there's sort of like two different generations, though, within millennials. So there's
there's ours.
Right, there's ours, and 9/11 happened when I was in college.
Okay.
So I've served in Iraq. I've been to Afghanistan several times, and I feel like our generation has that 9/11 mentality.
Sure.
But then there's the millennials who are in college now. They were toddlers whenever 9/11 happened, and I think it's really two generations into one. So I'm gonna crap on the younger ones. I think that our version, the older millennials, are the better ones. We're the ones we have Facebook. I mean, all of the things that were in social media, Uber, all of these things were founded by millennials of our
Oh no, and we're distinguishing that. Man, that's gonna get some angry comments. But anyway, Morgan. Yeah, no, by the way, you're gonna get a free pass. I 100% agree with you. And that may get me in trouble. So, but I'm not going to crap on the young millennials because I do like them too. And I think they're different. I think they're different, but I do think we're having less of a hard time now than they are.
Less of a hard time in what way?
They're actually entering a labor market that's better than when we were their age. You remember we also came of age during the Great Recession, and that significantly harmed many of our generation's careers.
That's a great point.
And we have a name for us. We're called Zennials. Generation X plus millennials.
I feel like that because my husband is not a millennial. He's Generation Z. Is that before us?
No, X. Z is our producer Alana is almost Z.
Oh.
Yeah, wow. We have Z's here now. I don't know what they're going to do after Generation ZZ Top. But anyway, moving on, our next headline is from the USA Today and is about a shift in the nursing industry. With the majority of baby boomers, speaking of generations, nearing the end of their careers, an unexpected surge of millennials is entering the nursing field and has helped prevent a potential workforce crisis. Hospitals across the country are seeing more millennials applying for nursing jobs, most likely due to the industry's reputation for stability and flexibility. So, something we didn't mention, though, is that there's a lot of males in nursing too.
That's good. That's a great thing about the millennial generation is that there's less gender,
of course,
stigma
you're in
about
finance,
what you need to
you're
do.
in finance
And the military.
Absolutely, two male-dominated professions.
I just
for
think
sure.
that my cousin is a nurse, and I have a lot of family in the medical. I just say the people in the medical community, especially nurses, they're the most wonderful people. I mean, the little snow incident that you saw, I actually went to the ER just to make sure that it didn't hit my head. And the people working there, the doctors, the nurses, everyone was so friendly. The nurse texted me the next day to make sure I was okay. And I just thought, who does that?
Not New York.
No, that's true. And Idaho. Shout out to Sun Valley nurses.
Yeah, Idaho is a fabulous place. But no, I think that it's healthcare is going to continue to create jobs, and I'm happy millennials are defining what it means in different professions without all the labels of gender norms, etc.
Exactly.
I think it's positive news in every sense of the word
Do we
positive
agree
news.
on everything?
I don't know. We're a damn echo chamber. But anyway, Morgan, go ahead.
The next headline comes from the Wall Street Journal and is about the effects of smartphone overuse, and addiction on young people. Some experts have raised concerns about potentially increased rates of teen depression and suicide, as well as the concern that phones are replacing traditional means of human interaction. So what is your take on children and smartphones?
Yikes. That's a hard one because I feel like they need to be trained on these devices, but their time on it has to be limited. It can't be a free-for-all.
I think you're right. And you know what? Speaking of generational gaps, one thing that I noticed is I don't like to talk on the phone. Like, I think, like, unless it's really urgent, just text me. And I think that that's a big generational gap as well, is because people of the older generation still want to call, and I'm like, why do we have to speak on the phone?
Oh my gosh!
Can't we text?
If you get someone who's over 40, they must call. And it's like, and when my phone rings, I'm like, what's happening?
I know.
Did someone die?
Is there a terrorist
is
attack?
my dog sick? Like, what's happening?
That's a good point.
I completely agree.
Our last headline comes from CNN and is about Oprah Winfrey's possible 2020 run for president. After her speech at the Golden Globes, some of Winfrey's friends have admitted to privately urging her to run. However, they say she has not yet made up her mind.
Play that clip.
Fighting hard to make sure that they become the leaders who take us to the time when nobody ever has to say, "Me too," again. Thank you.
Powerful message about Me Too. So question is, as popular as Oprah is, do you think that Americans would be willing to have another television star as president?
Okay, so funny enough, we broke the rules. We're not supposed to talk about politics on Bold Business, but I thought this was really important because this transcends politics.
Yeah.
I think, I'm not a member of the Democratic Party, but I think they'd be silly to pass up on her.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I don't know what I think. I mean, I do know I saw the pictures of her and Harvey Weinstein together yesterday, and I think the minute you enter politics, you start realizing, like, everything you've ever said or done comes under scrutiny.
Sure.
And so if she enters, I mean, what I love about her is that she is a self-made billionaire, which is totally
She's
impressive.
a great story.
But, when she gets in politics, she'll get the same rough and tumble as everybody else.
Yeah.
It's a nasty business.
It's a nasty business. But do you think she's a formidable challenger to Trump if Trump runs for re-election?
I think the Democrats are going to have 20 people running, similar to the Republican primary in 2016, and they're all going to have to duke it out. And in the age of celebrity, I mean, think about all of the free media time that Trump got during the primary.
Sure.
Because he had his own television show, because he was willing to be provocative.
Oprah might have a similar situation.
She might have a similar situation. Maybe.
So we're going to keep on watching
fun.
that. Yeah, absolutely. So let's move on to our guests. This show is primarily about guests, not just about Morgan and I agreeing
It's not
on
about
everything.
me?
Morgan and I agreeing on everything. So actually, our first guest is a friend of yours, right? His name's
Yeah.
Kyle Lawless. He's the assistant director at
Yay.
EY, or Ernst & Young, and is also a board member of Victory Programs, a Boston-based nonprofit organization dedicated to helping homeless individuals and families with substance use disorders, often accompanied by chronic health issues. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me.
Well, I was going to say that I asked Kyle to come on, and I'm so excited for you to talk about what you do in your charity work, because he was talking to me. We work together, and he was so passionate about this issue of substance abuse and how it's affecting Americans. And he was so passionate. I said, you've got to come on the show, and you've got to tell your story and what you're doing.
I mean, our nation is in crisis. In 2017, we're looking at 66,000 Americans died from drug overdoses. That's more than the number of Americans killed in car accidents, in gun violence, more than the number of Americans killed at the height of the HIV/AIDS epidemic. And so, and it's impacting every community, every town.
Is this largely opioids we're talking
It's
about?
opioids, yeah. It's largely opioids, and it's cutting across the socioeconomic spectrum. We're seeing folks that live below the poverty line and those well above it. I mean, Ivy League educated, working at blue chip companies, and everyone is suffering. It's really hitting home all across our nation.
So I felt like we heard a lot about the opioid crisis during the presidential election. Both parties were talking about it. But the one thing that I've always felt when I hear about it, and I think, God, this is so awful. And as you said, we're losing so many more Americans to it than any of the other, tragic areas that you mentioned. But what can we as individual Americans do? Like, I feel like this is a terrible crisis, and I don't know what to do about it.
Yeah, you know what? The number one thing we can do is end the stigma. The World Health Organization looked at 18 stigmatized conditions. They looked at spending time in prison. They looked at HIV/AIDS. Drug abuse, drug addiction, number one.
Wow.
And so, people look at this as a personal or moral failing, but it isn't. I mean, this is a brain disease, and we're not just throwing euphemisms around. I mean, the medical and scientific community is lockstep behind this, and this is a brain disease, and we need to support our neighbors, our friends, and those suffering from substance abuse disorder because they need our support. This is very, very challenging.
So whose fault is it? Because we all know people who had a health problem and then started taking pain pills and then
Right.
lost control
Right.
and then started buying street heroin. I feel like I know 10 people that's happened to. And I feel like it cuts across the socioeconomic strata, as you said. But whose fault is it? Is it the government's fault? Is it the individual's fault? Is it a problem of many hands where we can't attribute blame to a certain thing or policy?
It certainly isn't the individual's fault. I mean, we're talking about a brain disease, a medical disease, and these opioids and prescription painkillers can be so addictive. And if you look at what's happening, I mean, almost 2/3 of overdose victims have been on prescription pain medicine prior to their overdose.
Kyle, is it similar to, I felt like there was a stigma at one point in time in this country on mental health, on depression, on anxiety.
Presidential candidates have been sunk by that.
Right, on PTSD from people
Of
coming
course,
back.
shell shock,
And
right.
I feel like that stigma is largely gone. Like there's no shame in taking medicine. So is it, maybe this is overly simplistic, but is addiction to opioids, should we look at it as similar to depression or anxiety, that if you need medicine for it, it's some sort of chemical imbalance? Is that the right analogy?
I think it is, Morgan. I hope we start to see the same thing with drug addiction, because one of the main barriers to seeking support and becoming clean is that stigma and is that shame. And so I hope that we start to see the same thing.
Do you guys carry Narcan? Because I do.
We do, I personally don't carry Narcan.
I have it in my work bag.
What is it?
So explain what Narcan is. Kyle.
Narcan is a miracle drug. Narcan will reverse an overdose.
No way.
Save lives.
Is it the nasal spray?
Yep, and
Yes.
it was covered by my insurance. So I always worry that I'm going to come across someone who's ODing because it's so widespread.
Right. I mean, we're out in the community. We're out in Boston. We're giving out Narcan by the thousands.
My insurance
everywhere
paid for
we
it.
can.
My insurance paid for it, and they know it's not for me. They just.
Most pharmacies.
Is it big? Is it small? Can it fit in your purse?
Oh yeah, it's tiny. It's this big, Morgan.
I mean, we're training people to use Narcan like we trained, others with CPR, and all sorts of things. I mean, and it's so easy. It's a nasal spray. It takes seconds, and actually we're saving thousands of lives.
The thing about opioid addiction, similar to depression or cancer or diabetes, is it doesn't matter how much money you make, what color you are, what religion you are, what your education is. You're born with this sort of, my understanding is that similarly, if you're born with the attributes that lead to depression, you're born to having a susceptibility to the opioids, and you're born being having that addictive personality.
Yeah, I think it's a mix of genetic and environmental factors.
Okay.
But no, you're right. You're right. It
Kyle, we have an
definitely plays a
audience
part.
question. How do you protect doctors who are trying to wean people off opioids? Because the problem is they have a patient, they're on these pain pills, and they're trying to get them off. What do you do? Sometimes they've had situations where they walk into offices, especially in Florida, which we had a pill mill problem, and trying to wean all these people off. How do doctors protect themselves?
I think that we need to get, if people are struggling with addiction, I think we need to get them into professional help. At our programs, we operate a number of long-term care programs, and long-term care programs work, but there's a 4-month wait. Nearly every recovery home in the state of Massachusetts has a wait. And so you're talking about 4 months from the time you leave detox, and that's a really, really dangerous period because during that period, you're looking at a very high risk of overdose, of relapse, and it's just, we need to address this issue better. We need more beds, we need more funding, we really need to put the resources where
Well,
they're
the
needed.
administration said they were going to focus on it, so hopefully there'll be some action on that front.
Should be a totally bipartisan issue.
Absolutely.
Totally.
Absolutely. Kyle Lawless, we'll have you on back soon.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Kyle.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
Okay, our next guests are Geoffrey, McCabe, and Tim Sanders from the Divi project. Jeff is the project's founder and CEO, and Tim's the project's advisor. Welcome to the show, guys. I would love for you to tell. I love your hair, by the way. Fabulous. Mine, it's not even that long. Tell us a little bit more about the project. What is it? I was reading about it, and I have to be honest that it was a little confusing to me. So
Yeah, we get that.
explain it all.
Yeah, that's kind of what it's all about. The fact that as soon as you start talking about cryptocurrency, people get very confused. People that have tried to get into it find themselves very confused and sometimes almost reacting viscerally angry at the whole system that they're trying to get involved in. And they hear in the news about all these people making money on it and that it's the wave of the future. But when they try to get into it, it's incredibly complicated and difficult. And so what we're doing is solving this very important problem by making it much easier for average people to get into cryptocurrency.
So how does the Divi wallet work?
Go ahead, Jeff.
Well, basically, it's, some people call it, the Apple of cryptocurrency or the Google of cryptocurrency. It's kind of this idea.
Like Bitcoin, Ethereum.
Yeah, it's basically a Bitcoin, but it's much easier for average people to use. So
It's very design focused, right? It thinks a lot from the user experience, trying to make it for the smartphone where it's incredibly easy and gives you a lot of
Incredibly
peace of
easy
mind.
to purchase.
Well, you can't solve the on-ramp, but you can absolutely solve the wallet issue. How do you send or spend cryptocurrency?
Okay.
We can make that easier. I mean, if for example now, if I
You work
wanted
with
to,
all the currencies then?
we're a distinct currency.
You are a distinct currency. Wow. See, that's the whole thing about these topics. Like,
Right.
it's so hard to understand. So let's break it down to the absolute most elemental level. Why did you start your own cryptocurrency?
yeah, in my case, I had originally gotten into cryptocurrencies 3 or 4 years ago, and I bought a bunch of Ripple, actually, which, is now worth a fortune. It was almost immediately stolen by hackers off an exchange, and it made me really mad, And before that point, I was already really nervous because I tried to get into it, and it was so hard to try to figure out how to send it to myself. I bought it, which was really hard to get, and then trying to send it to another wallet, it was just ridiculously confusing, and I'm a tech guy, so I thought this is terrible. And then, I'm already afraid, of what's going on. Every time I send it to myself, I'm like shaking. I'm still that way actually after 3 years.
There's a lot of fear and uncertainty for people, and if I wanted to send you money now, it's not like PayPal.
No.
I don't say this is my email address and you PayPal me money. It's not that way. It's this huge hex key, and you got to send a QR code. It's incredibly complicated because I believe that a lot of other currencies haven't taken a design focus,
That's
like
right.
how Steve Jobs thought about the iMac in 1998, cutting hours and hours out of the setup process.
What is the upside for using your cryptocurrency as opposed for me just using US dollars?
Yeah, and the audience question was the exact same thing.
Yeah.
How do you pay for things in your
Right.
own in Divi?
Well, it's the same, it's like all cryptocurrencies. The great thing about it is that it's not controlled by a bank or a government, and it's person to person, peer to peer, they call it. And so anywhere in the world, instantly you can send it to anybody. You don't have to ask permission. You don't have to wait for hours. With Bitcoin, you have
If
to
they
wait 20
accept
minutes or more.
Bitcoin, right, and you want to pay in Divi, and obviously the price varies, correct?
Sure.
Yeah.
How does that work? So
Well,
let's say
there's actually a new technology coming out called atomic swaps, where if somebody wants to accept Bitcoin but you want to pay in Divi, it will in the future be able to exchange between any two cryptocurrencies.
It sounds like a modern version of the barter system.
Yeah, exactly. We think of it actually.
wonderful.
Part of what we're doing, is basically our own marketplace inside, and we like this sort of analogy of having people being able to deal directly with each other, and that's the way people used to buy things. It's directly person to person, and somehow governments, banks, and everybody else, all these middlemen, got in between.
So
we're
I
basically
assume
trying
it
to
can
take
be
it back to that.
taxed.
It can be taxed.
It can be
In
taxed.
fact, that's one of the issues with current cryptocurrencies that everybody talks about now is how long will the governments allow this to
Right.
happen? When millions and millions of people start using this and nobody's paying taxes, the governments are going to have to decide to either get rid of taxes and tax people in some other way, or they're going to force or try to force cryptocurrencies to tax people. And so we're actually making Divi so people that want to collect taxes can easily do that, and perhaps even automatically send them to the government's
so
wallet.
smartly designed from the ground up
Yeah.
versus other cryptocurrencies, which is really hard.
Give you one other little wrinkle to this is another good reason to hold the Divi currency is because if you think about credit cards, what's in your wallet, a lot of people think about cash back. Well, we're not a cash back, but Jeff will describe the airdrop system, which gives you a unique opportunity for having this coin to get a lot more coins.
Right. So basically, like right now, one of the things we did to encourage people to to buy Divi and to hold on to it during the process of actually us building our blockchain as we were doing these airdrops. So every week at a random time, fairly random amount, people just find a bunch of extra coins in their wallet.
Like a little scavenger hunt.
It's a move the needle amount of
People
coins.
are really, it's not, yeah, I mean, it's really exciting for people because it's just like free money. And
I like free
whenever it
money.
happens, the airdrop comes, my partner Nick, who's here, he posts a picture of an airplane dropping these parachutes, and everybody gets really excited, the whole community. And they'll go to their wallets to open them up to see how much they got. And this is like the future, this is part of the future of money. Like money has been a boring
You think
thing.
this is the future of money?
It's community-based. That's what we've built at Divi, is a community of people
Very
that not only hold a
libertarian.
coin, but really support decentralization, support the idea of diversifying how you hold your currency. Because why would you hold it all in U.S. fiat if you could find a safe and simple alternative to that?
We have one last audience question before we leave you. Wouldn't the conversion of Divi or any other coin with any kind of market cap to Bitcoin create the possibility of fraud? Wouldn't it be easy to essentially wash your worthless coins for those of value?
Smart question. That was mine.
Can you answer that?
Well, the market's going to respond to that, whether you're converting any kind of currency. So the answer is that inside those systems, there is a sense of security
Because
that
of
you're going to
blockchain
have. Exactly.
technology.
You're going to have to be recognized as having value to make that conversion. It's not just something that automatically happens because you pick a number. We have a specific price for Divi right now and a specific market cap, and the market's decided
How much
that,
is it
not
Uh,
worth
us.
right now?
$10, $11.
People hold on to Divi. That's one of the reasons we've seen it become more valuable, and just recently too.
Well,
Yeah.
you heard it here first
Fascinating.
on Bold TV.
Yeah,
Divi.
I need a Divi wallet.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much, gentlemen, for joining us.
for having
Thank
us.
you.
Absolutely. So next we have our featured author as part of our weekly Bookster segment. Bookster's a website for book lovers and much more. Sarah's unfortunately not here today. She usually accompanies the authors. But this week we have David Bach, author of Smart Couples Finish Rich. The book provides couples with easy-to-use tools covering everything from credit card management to investment advice. Welcome to the show, David.
Thank you. It's great to be here. Congratulations on your new show, by the way.
Oh, well, thank you. Thank you. Well, Morgan is our newest addition here. Hopefully she plans
you.
on
Hi,
staying
Morgan.
forever.
Hi.
So-
I thought, this is fascinating. Go ahead.
Well, no, you're the married one, so I'm going to let you take the lead.
No, I mean, what I found interesting about this, you've talked about how some couples are on second and third marriages, but also marriage is different. You have, marriages in between men and men, women and women, and the look of marriage is changing. So I'm curious, if your advice is the same to traditional first-time married couples as it is to third-time same-sex married couples, whatever,
Third time.
whatever the
Have they had that
Right.
much time, Morgan, to get divorced three times?
I've met people who've been married 3 times,
Yeah,
but you know what I'm saying? 'Cause
No, I do, and I think people ask me how things change. This book came out originally 17 years ago.
Oh, wow.
And it was the #1 book of the year in 2004 when it came out. The #1 business book
remember
of the year.
that.
I did this book on Oprah. Thank you,
remember
Oprah. And it's the #1 book for couples and money in America in the last 20 years. And so when I went to update it, people said, well, how have things changed? And I think what you just described is a big part of how things have changed. A lot of people are in second marriages, or they're living together and they're not married. How do you bring your money together when your life becomes more complicated?
And it's not the model of the man makes, that's still the model. So there are some women who choose to stay at home, but for the most part, most of the marriages that I know, like myself, the women make just as much money, if not more. Than their,
In many cases. So here's what Smart Couples starts you off with. You went straight to the money. Smart Couples Finish Rich starts you off with values. So the most important thing for couples to have a successful marriage, we went out and looked at couples who have been married 20, 30, 40 years. They're well off financially, and they're still happy.
because they're not fighting about money.
Right. So what did they do different than those who end up divorced and fight over money? What they did is they focused on their values first. So they looked at what we call your true north. What's most important to you? Now, whether you're in a first marriage, a second marriage, a third marriage, whether you're gay, it doesn't make a difference. What
Right.
matters are your values. What is most important to both of you individually and also as a couple? So the first exercise in the book is aligning your values together. So if the way you spend money is in conflict with your values, you will fight all the time. And the problem with money fights is they reoccur on average every 2 weeks.
Wow.
And that's because the bills are coming in. So the one thing that creates the most fights in a relationship is money. And what happens is you'll have people come together, they're in love, and they're a team. And then as they fight, they keep getting pulled further and further and further apart. And so what my belief is, what really pushed me to update this book, is that when you teach couples how to align their values and fix their finances, you actually save the American marriage. And when you do that, you save the American family. And that sounds like a big overarching thing, but it's true. And having now been doing this for 25 years, it's sad when you meet couples that started off really in love, and because of money fights, it broke up the family. It doesn't need to be like that.
So, and divorce is the largest destroyer of wealth in America.
True.
95% of millionaires are still married to their first person, to the first spouse. So you're absolutely right. When you get divorced, it devastates you financially. It hurts women more than men. And, I will tell you this, a lot of people rush off to couples counseling when they're having marriage problems. And what I will tell most couples is this: actually, you just need a good financial plan. You might be better off meeting with a financial advisor who can sit down and work through your money issues. Then you can go work on the other issues, because usually when you fix the finances, you start to fix everything else in your relationship.
And in terms of, when you say having the same values, I think it also has to be about wanting to do the same things and spend money on the same things. Like my husband and I never get each other gifts at Christmas or Hanukkah or whatever.
We don't do gifts either for either of those
We go on
holidays,
vacation because we think
Experiences.
we think
We
we'd
do
rather,
too. There we go, Morgan.
We'd rather be
High
together.
five.
But
I'll high five you too. I'm totally with you on
we
that.
both feel the same way. It's not like I'm secretly wanting and hoping for a gift. Although I like gifts, but I don't wake up on Christmas morning and I'm like, what? There's no
Where are my
surprise.
presents?
I would much rather go somewhere. So I think it's more of like being on the same page.
Same page.
What do you want to do on Saturday morning together?
And that's where you learn how to have these conversations together. And what I did in the Smart Couples Finish Rich on this go around is I created a whole section on having a money date. Because a lot of times couples don't know how to have these conversations. So I teach you actually how to plan a time where you're both ready to have these conversations. And that's a great example, because the holidays happen to be the #1 time that families destroy their entire financial life for the year. So you'll see couples do everything right for 11 months, and in December, completely throw their financial life out of whack because of the holidays. So again, money dates, values, a financial plan can change your life as a couple.
So, David, what if you're in a relationship and there's economic inequality? Someone
Yeah.
makes a lot more
Right.
money than the other. What do you do?
So in most relationships, you have separate accounts, first of all. You always do. You should, because you need your own credit score. Then you need a joint account. And you need to sort of have that conversation around what's going to be paid out of the joint account. If one person is making the bulk of the money, and that's very common, then there still needs to be money for the person who's maybe not making the money, right? Like if you're the stay-at-home parent, you still need money. What I see,
That's a full-time job in itself.
that's a full-time job completely.
Yeah.
And often
Medicare is so expensive.
the person who's the stay-at-home parent feels like they're on an allowance.
Right.
And when they feel like they're on an allowance, that they can't make their life work with that allowance, quote unquote, that's where the anger and hostility, and that's another big thing that can really impact a relationship.
Wow.
You get the last question, Morgan. Because
No.
you got that big fat ring on you. I don't have
know.
one yet.
Show that ring, ladies and gentlemen.
I'm like hiding my jewelry.
No, this is
It's gorgeous, by the way, and very shiny.
Oh no! Well, you think from my very sweet husband. So no, I mean the economic inequality question. I mean, I just wanted to end on that, because I do think even though there are a lot of couples that both are working, they have separate accounts. How do you ultimately, if you were the stay-at-home parent, how do you ultimately not feel like you're on an allowance? Should you get some sort of part-time side job or something that you can do on your own just to bring in your own value?
I'm going to tell you 3 things you should do specifically.
Okay.
One, if you're the stay-at-home parent, you should actually be in charge of the money. So if you're in charge of the money, you'll have control of
You're
the
the
money.
accountant.
So you should be the CFO of the household.
Totally.
You shouldn't say, "Oh, I'm too busy taking care of the kids." No, you should be taking time to focus on the family finances. That way you're in charge.
Yeah.
Second thing I'll tell you is extra income can change your life.
Yeah.
And we see so many stay-at-home parents today that once the kids are off at school, they're making money at home online. They're doing some type of work that's bringing in extra cash flow.
JetBlue, all of them are stay-at-home moms. Did you
That's
know that?
exactly right.
Yeah.
Or stay-at-home dads, by the way. We got a lot of
Yeah.
stay-at-home dads. So that second thing of income is huge. And the third thing I would tell you is increase your financial literacy. All right? It is
Well,
not
that's what the show is all about.
it is not okay to be saying, I'm not interested in this stuff. Money is like oxygen. It doesn't matter until it's gone. You want to know your financial life. And Smart Couples Finish Rich is a great roadmap to help you get there.
Wow, David. I know what the money clip is. Sometimes we clip these shows, and we're going to have that be a little meme.
I love that. I love that. Thank you. Thanks for having me on.
David Bach, author of Smart Couples Finish Rich. Thank you so much.
Congratulations again. Good to be here.
Thank you.
Thank you. Go ahead, Morgan. Why don't you take a shot at it?
Alrighty, for the second part of our bookstore segment, we have Michael Hyatt, author of Your Best Year Ever. I love that. A 5-step plan for achieving your most important goals. The book helps readers lay out their goals for the year in just 5 hours. God, I need this. This is like therapy for me today.
Money and now goals.
And helps readers stay on track to achieve them. Welcome to the show, Michael. What a great way to start out 2018 with you.
Thanks so much. I'm delighted to be here.
So tell us, how do we set these goals and how do you do it in 5 hours?
Well, there's a wrong way and there's a right way. The wrong way is what most Americans do. Over 200 million Americans do New Year's resolutions. And the problem is 92% of them don't complete them. And the crazy thing is the average person has the same resolution on their list 10 years in a row without accomplishing it.
Yikes, high
It's
fail
nuts.
rate. Yeah.
So the main thing to do is you've got to write your goals down.
Yeah.
All the research shows from the goal achievement research that just writing your goals down gives you a 42% greater chance of achieving the goal. And the reason for that is it forces you to get clarity. Most people don't know what they want. And so to get clarity, it's like the old saying goes, thoughts disentangle themselves passing over the lips and through pencil tips. And so when you write something down, you get clear on what it is that you want. And in the book, I talk about the criteria for a goal that can actually be achieved. And it's a lot different than the conventional wisdom.
But Michael, I'm curious. I think one of the problems with Americans is that we don't have time to think.
Right.
We're always so busy going from
There's
one
no
thing
dead
to
space with the
there's
smart.
no there's the phone. And I was in Idaho last week, and I love the American West. I mean, it's so gorgeous.
It is.
And I really took the time to.
Did you ruminate
I did.
among the bison?
I sipped coffee and I stared at the mountains because I thought if I just make some resolution, I'm not going to do it. I really need to just sit and look at nature and think about what I want to do with my life. And I don't know how we make more time for that, but I always feel like I just don't have enough time to really think.
Well, that's really where the book came from. It was out of my own practice of taking the 5 days between Christmas and New Year's to really think about what I wanted for this next year.
You're telling me I'm a genius.
You're a genius. You were onto something. But the truth is, most people don't think about this next year. They kind of drift through life, and nobody ever drifted to a destination they would have chosen. You've got to design your life. And it's not just in the financial area, but it's your health, it's your most important relationships, it is your vocation and your career, but it's all these different domains, and they're all interrelated. So the book takes you through a process, 5-step process, where you actually envision what it is that you want for this year so that you get to December the 31st, look back on 2018 and say, that was my best year ever.
Do you feel like we focus overly on the easy stuff like weight and, love and all that stuff, and there's goals that we kind of gloss over?
Well, kind of, because some goals are inherently more measurable. So like weight loss is very measurable, financial goals are very measurable. But when it comes to a relationship, the quality of intimacy that you might have with your partner, how do you measure that? How do you put a number on that? And usually what you have to do is to reduce that achievement goal to what I call in the book a habit goal. A practice that if you observe that practice will build your relationship. I mean, a simple one for couples is just a regular date night. So many couples stop dating after they get married. And yet that's inherently a part of growing as a couple is learning to be fascinated with one
My
another.
parents, 36 years, still have date night.
Wow. I've been married 39 years. Still have date night.
Still have date night. Friday, I never ask them to go out to dinner with me. I know they have plans, and it's like
That's
an
awesome.
unspoken, oh, have a nice night. Bye.
Oh, that's sweet. But so you were mentioning that a lot of people for 10 years in a row will have the same New Year's resolutions. So why do so many people quit their resolutions? I mean, I'm sure that's what you describe in the book, but why do so many people quit, and what can we do to quit-proof our goals?
That's a great phrase. In fact, I use it.
I know.
How to quit proof your goals. So first of all, you got to write it. We talked about that. The second thing is most people set goals that are too safe. All the research shows that your goal needs to be risky. And in my smarter system, the R doesn't stand for realistic. That's way overrated. It stands for risky. And the reason is that when a goal is a little bit risky, when it's in your discomfort zone, it ignites your imagination, it compels your best effort, and it really ensures your focus so that you stay with it. So that's another reason. But another reason is just not accountability. People try to go it alone. Americans are particularly bad at this. But there are so many resources out there. And it's like the person who thinks they've got to floss, for 6 months before they go to a dentist, or they got to get rid of their debt before they go to a financial advisor. And there's all these people that can help them if they would just be humble enough to ask for the help.
Well, that's always challenging.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think, how do we know we're not being risk takers and not
Right.
reckless?
That's a great distinction. So I say you can set your goals in 3 zones. One is the comfort zone, where you feel confident, you know the path, it's easy. Forget those goals. Those will not help you. Then there's a discomfort zone, where you feel fear, uncertainty, and doubt. Those are actually positive indicators that you're exactly in the right zone. But you don't want to be in the delusional zone.
Delusional.
So, or as you called it, the reckless zone. That's like if I decided I was going to play center for the Lakers. That's delusional.
You seem some sort of tall.
I'm 5'11". I mean, that's, yeah. I would be a midget on the court.
Yeah, I'm not going to be the center for the Lakers either in 2018. Don't worry.
So do your goals change, Michael, as age progresses and
Sure.
life stages? So what's your, this show is meant for, young people.
Yep.
What is your advice for young people in terms of goal setting?
Well, in the SMARTER framework, the last R stands for relevant. In other words, the goals you set have to be aligned with the season of life that you're in.
So don't set them for like 20 years from now.
Yeah, that's right. Well, it's not bad to have a long-term vision for your life, but I find that the 1 year is just a perfect time frame or time horizon to look at. But consider your season of life. Make sure that your goals align with each other. And if you're married or if you got a significant other, they need to be aligned with the people that are in your life too. You can't be, contrary in terms of your goals.
Wow, that's fascinating stuff. So I think, as we said earlier, people tend to quit them, but I believe if people read your book, this is very practical
Yes.
advice on what people can do. And it's already mid-January, so I think that there's still plenty of time.
Plenty of
assume,
time.
for
It's
people to do
January
that.
9th.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
already
It's only
begun.
January 9th.
Yeah. We're still kind
It's
of in
still
the
early
beginning. We're
January.
hanging between
That's
the early and mid. Yeah.
But so you were saying, so writing them down, having the goals for the year. Is there anything else that millennials should focus on other than reading your book, of course, which I'm assuming we can all read on our Kindle apps.
Absolutely.
Is there, because we don't own hard
Or
books anymore.
audiobook,
Yeah,
Audible,
audiobook.
or
Oh,
anything.
Audible.
This is an artifact of another age.
Is there anything else that millennials specifically should be
Yeah.
thinking about?
Well, the very first part of the book talks about believe in the possibility. And so many of us have been knocked down by some kind of setback or challenge that we develop these limiting beliefs. So I used to have this English setter named Nelson, and he would constantly run out of the yard, take us 30 minutes to retrieve him. Then we invested in an invisible fence. He got so trained with that fence that we could take the collar off, and he would never venture outside the yard because that external boundary had moved into the internal realm of his head. And this is where a lot of people are in goal setting. They say, for example, and it's a limiting belief, they say things like, well, I'm too young, or I'm too old, or I don't have enough experience, or I don't have enough education, or I don't have the right kind of experience. Those are problems that exist between our ears, and if we can sort out our thinking and transform those limiting beliefs into liberating truths, then all of a sudden we can take on bigger things and actually accomplish what we want to accomplish.
I love that.
An audience member said, a great man once said, goals without a plan is a wish. Have you ever heard
Yes,
that before?
I have.
Herman
Perfect.
Edwards, evidently.
Yeah,
So
terrific.
anyway, so Michael Hyatt, esteemed author and now friend, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Wonderful. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I'm so inspired today.
No, well, that's what the show is all about. Our next guest is Yamandou Alexander. He's the chairman of Makeba Mobile Wallet Revolutions. He's also the co-founder of Malaika, a New York-based organization that operates in the southeast region of the Democratic Republic of the Congo, empowering Congolese girls and their communities through education. Man, diverse career choices there.
Indeed. Thank you to receive me. How are you guys?
Absolutely. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to you too. All the
So
best.
where do we start? Let's start with your business, and then we'll move on to your charity efforts in Africa. Tell us about your business.
So I've been an entrepreneur since 1996, been in telecommunication, transport, now focusing on electricity and financial services. So on the business, Makeba, it's to promote financial inclusion, so that the long-term goal is to address the problem of income inequality that we have in the world through financial inclusion. So in Africa, it's a big need, and we are going to address that.
Most people start out with like an app, like I've got a good idea for an app, and you're trying to solve financial inclusion for the world, which is amazing and noble and inspiring. But how does a business solve income inequality? I mean, that's fascinating to me.
So you have a large population in Africa that don't have access to financial services, to save, to plan, to finance things. And also the other problem is that the diaspora from the African community is sending money back home, and those costs are very high, around 9.5% by companies like Western Unions and others. So there is a first problem to resolve there to reduce this cost, and then through mobile banking in Africa give access to, because cell phones now are very cheap, both smartphone and feature phones. And by giving access to those people to this mobile banking app that will be cheaper to use, that merchants will accept as a form of payment, that's the way we are going to do
So,
it.
because mobile banking is pretty prolific already in Africa right now. Like I know most Western, banks have their own mobile banking platform. So what makes this platform different?
It will be, we are launching toward the end of January, February, so some of it is still under development, but it will be a mix of communication, like you could imagine WhatsApp,
Okay.
and through, you can do also payments. We have a very strong example of this being successful in Asia with WeChat. And to go back to Africa, yes, indeed, there is many initiatives like M-Pesa in Kenya.
Yeah.
Yeah. So mobile banking is one part of the equation. You need to create a full financial ecosystem in order to be able to capitalize the right way so that the benefit to the people can be there.
So what's your connection to Africa? Did you grow up there? Is your family from there? What's the connection?
My family is from there on the marriage side, but I'm been doing telecom in Africa since 1998, starting in Congo, providing handsets, cell phone, while I was still a waiter at
Where
restaurant.
did you grow up?
I grew up in south of France.
Oh, okay.
I was gonna say, you totally caught the
yeah,
French
you can
accent.
tell. Yeah, of course.
The south of France is my favorite place in the world.
It's a lot of people's favorite place. Yeah.
New York City first, then the south of France.
So that's how it happened. You married, and how long have you lived in Africa?
So I live in New York since 1994. I live in New York, but I go every 2-3 months a lot in Africa. And we
Mostly to East Africa, or which part of
all over the place. For the World Food Program, we were carrying their telecom network in 38 countries. Now I go a lot into Senegal, where we do the development of the technology for Makeba. And I go obviously a lot in Congo to watch over our school and what we are doing there in the promotion of girls' education.
Well, that's a great segue. Yeah, tell us a little bit more about the charity.
Yeah.
So 10 years ago, we met Noela and I in New York, and we share a dream to develop education. And we felt that women empowerment, it's also very important in the situation of Congo. So we started by sponsoring 15 girls from an orphanage to get an education. Then we built a school. We accepted 104 girls. And then we've been growing since then. We have now 280 girls. We have also a community center. And they have a holistic curriculum where they learn computer, they are learning how to speak English, and we want them to be the leader of change for the future. And that country needs a lot of women to be future leaders.
So we always talk about millennial economic empowerment on the show, but funny enough, a European once told me we don't have enough millennials in Europe because, their population growth is lower. We have a lot of millennials in the United States, of course, and in the Western world, but there's even more millennials in Africa.
Yeah.
It's a very young population. So how do we empower this huge generation in Africa that's coming of age?
So definitely education is number one through mobile technology. To all this new technology, that's going to be the only way. Indeed, 70% of the population is below 30 years old. So you have this huge youth that's going to be the future. And once we have the last couple of dictators that start to topple one by one.
We just got rid of the one in Zimbabwe, yeah.
So there is some few more to go. And after that...
quite a number of them to go, yes.
As we see that youth that know about their country, believe in their country, have the competence, have been to school, and they invest in their country, that's the way Africa is going to grow, and many countries already are on that path.
How does the school develop its curriculum?
So we are based on the Belgium curriculum, the Congolese standard, but then we are improve it. We do a lot of partnership with international organizations that bring additional skills, and we improve the curriculum so that they have a holistic approach to many different subjects, so that the girls can be ready to go to college internationally.
Wow. That's really amazing.
Yeah.
And what do you think about, there was a while that there was foreign investment in Africa, was really in vogue and competitive. I know that the Chinese have invested quite a bit. Do you think that the foreign investment levels that we were seeing in the early 2000s are still going to keep pace in Africa writ large?
Africa is the biggest single best opportunity globally today.
Wow.
Asia have some challenge, obviously.
I wish my
America.
401k had an Africa fund because I'd throw the money in there because I agree with you.
The type of return that you see, look at a company like MTN, look at the success of the banks like UBA. Nigeria is growing. They had some issue because of oil price, but they're diversifying their economy now to agriculture. More countries are focusing in agriculture. We have successful development shop like Andela, where Mark Zuckerberg invested a lot of money. So there is so many talents, like the whole team building our technology, they're all sitting in Senegal, West African people with very, very good skills. So I think those investments are going to continue. And the type of return that we see there are going to continue to make other investors start to be familiar with Africa and getting educated. You know, it's very important to know because one African country, let's say you know about Benin, that have nothing to do with Swaziland. You know about
Right.
Swaziland?
No, you just changed sides of Africa. There's 54, 55 countries now in
Exactly,
Africa.
54 indeed, yeah.
Well, I'm headed to Africa next month. I can't wait. Yeah.
Wonderful.
You'll have to bring back pictures.
If you do a 2-hour flight, you can go to Lubumbashi and you will teach the girls
in
journalism.
Oh my
Democratic
God, we should
Republic
set
of
this
the
up.
Yeah.
I love that. I'll do that.
And bring back pictures
Yeah.
for bold business.
Exactly.
Absolutely. Mr. Alexander, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank
to
you
have
so
me.
much. Happy New Year.
Our next guest is the CEO of the fastest growing professional modeling platform in the world. Mark Willingham is here to talk about Agent Inc., an app that enables faster, smarter, and safer bookings. Maybe we can get you booked, Morgan.
Yeah, well, no. I think I'm in the old lady section.
No! How you doing, Mark?
They'll book me to be like
good,
the
thank
mom
you.
of kids.
So a platform for models.
It is, yeah. Well, and it also about
You're a
diversity.
really smart guy for developing this, by the way.
You
I
know-
see you have a wedding ring on. Are you married to a
I am
model?
married. Yeah, no,
Oh, okay.
a Brazilian who's beautiful though.
I was gonna say, if my husband was like, I'm developing a model app, I'd be like,
You'd be like, honey, no.
like hell you are. Sorry.
right.
Smart though.
Yeah, well, we basically looked at an industry that's been around for 60 years unchanged. And we said, you know, this is messed up in a lot of ways. It's non-transparent.
Right.
It's unempowering for the models.
Totally.
It's inefficient for people booking models. I mean, it's fragmented beyond belief. If you looked at the numbers, it's a $1.4 billion industry in the U.S. alone, and less than 20% of that is generated by the 4 largest agencies. The remaining 80% is handled by 6,500 small agencies
goodness.
that average 2 employees per agency.
Wow.
So you're really disrupting the power system in the modeling industry with this app and as you said, empowering the model, which is often, I think, a very young woman
Yes.
who may or may not have worked before or gone to school and maybe not know her full rights.
Yeah, well, we start off right now, you have to be 18 to be on our platform. Because we believe that if you don't have someone there with you, if you're under 18, you need to have someone with you. And when you're using technology, there's no way we can guarantee someone's going to be with that person. So to us, empowerment starts with education. And we're starting with education to the models, letting them know what you need to do to become the next Giselle, Adriana, whatever it takes. How did they get there? What's expected, what is not expected? When can you say no? So empowerment means a lot of things. In today's world, we understand, I mean, that means a lot. So we're really about, and then with companies, it's really about, can you find a model in minutes rather than weeks?
So who actually books the model? Is it the photographer? Is it the marketing company?
Yeah, I don't
Who-
understand all that
It's
either.
all of the above. It could be the photographer, it could be the brand or company themselves. Almost 50% of the time, it's through the marketing agency or advertising agency who's putting the campaigns together and everything.
That's like us, a PR,
Yeah,
a PR
exactly.
firm brought you.
gotta rely, you rely on them to put things together, and then they bring you this package. So, but then who are you dealing with? And then this model goes to a shoot, and what are they dealing with? What are they up against? Who's setting their rates? Do they know what the agencies are actually getting paid versus what they're supposed to be
Do
getting out
you
of it?
have all that info in the app?
We have all of it.
Oh.
We actually, every client that comes into our app, and this is good for the clients as well.
And you're not paying the middleman, right? The person.
Well,
typically
they
in the
become the
middle.
middleman, right?
Yeah.
Kind of. I mean, we take a small percentage, a fraction of the normal. It's normal to take 20% from the client, and
20%?
and 20 from the model. We take 5% from the client, and 10% from the model, and we provide for the model the safest platform in the world. I mean, every client who books a model on agent, we do a criminal background check, we do a sex offender background check, and then we do a validation and verification of who they actually are.
So I definitely see the upside for the model and why a young woman especially would want to use this
I know where you're
app.
going with this.
But
This is
yeah,
a-
how do you get the agencies to
Yeah, like
to buy on
GQ
using
needs a
that?
model. Like, are they going
Well,
to use your platform?
I mean, I could put it this way. Are they for a better industry? Do they really support empowerment of women? Do they really support improving things? I mean, I think most companies out there are saying yes, but there's a lot of talk and a little less walk. And we're saying, if you believe that, then support those systems that are actually helping to support women.
When you look at the whole Me Too movement that came out of Hollywood,
Of course.
part of the problem was that especially these women that are trying to make it in the industry felt caught in this like power vortex of these really powerful men controlling
didn't
what
have a
roles
choice,
they're going
yeah.
to get. And so I actually think that right now is the perfect time for you to be going on the PR push about this, because this is exactly the power structure in the old model is exactly why women were disincentivized or were harassed or whatever happened, because they couldn't control their own booking, whether it's for a model or an actor or whatever.
Correct. And what happens when you actually go into a shoot and then someone says, can you do this? And that wasn't planned. Do you feel
goodness.
empowered to say no?
you guys have like a warning button on
We
the
have
app?
everything built into this. We're building in systems that will allow someone to get out of a bad situation. We're building in the ability for models to actually report their experience, so all the other models see what happened. So we'll even make it difficult for people to book models if they're not doing things correctly. So ours is about empowerment. It's about efficiency. It's about safety. And the clients win on everything. We have over 10,000 registered models already on our platform.
So you just got to get the businesses going.
Yeah, and we're launching, we've been actually live for about 7 months, but live beta, and we're formally launching this month. So we're going to actually do our outreach to clients starting this month. But we've been booking models and growing at about 3,000% month over month right now.
We have an audience question. How do you verify that bookers' profiles are legit?
The bookers,
Yeah.
we look at one.
Or everyone.
Yeah.
Let's talk about everyone. The models, the client.
Sure. Well, we do a verification on each one of them. So when they come into the system, we actually ask them questions that are done through a system that we have that asks them things about their past, where they lived, and so on. So we know that is actually who they say they are. We then actually physically look at their social media. We look at their website. We look at everything about them and make sure that everything stands where it's supposed to be, and then we actually do the criminal background checks. So we've got everything covered. It's a long process, but we have a super clean platform because of what we do.
Wow. Incredible. We're looking forward to your launch, and we'll be watching you closely.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, thank you for coming on. Go ahead, Morgan.
Next up in the show, we have Virginie. Did I pronounce that right? Virginie Glaenzer, CEO of SoHo Places, a new space in the trendy SoHo neighborhood that I love of New York, that recently opened its doors on December 4th, hoping to give the city's 1.3 million freelancers, 1.3 million, an affordable meeting space.
I'm one of them.
Are you?
I'm a freelancer on the side, of course.
Welcome to the show. I think I mispronounced your name.
No, you did
Tell the
right.
audience.
Good
I
morning,
did it.
Morgan. Good morning, David. Virginie.
Virgin. Oh, that's so pretty.
You can try the French way, Virginie, but that's
Well,
Virginie,
I'm
yeah.
from the
Yes.
American South, and so I have trouble.
I'm from the American South, too, and
Pronouncing
I just
English.
pronounced it.
Virginie is perfect.
Virginie. Oh, that's so pretty.
Thank you.
really
It's
like
actually
that.
just Virginia.
It is, but
Yeah.
French.
Yes.
Even better. We have a lot of French people on the show today. I feel like I need to go to Paris.
Yeah, well,
Or the
you're going
South.
or the south of France, your favorite place in
love
the world.
Paris.
So tell us, freelancers need a space, don't they?
They do. I mean, and first of all, I want to say that, there was an author who was here right before. Some books have a powerful effect on you. I read this book. It's called I Am Keats. This is the book that actually made me do what I'm doing today.
I Am Keats, Escape Your Mind and Free Yourself by Tom Asaker.
Yes, and the reason is we have those two voices in our head. So this Coleridge, which is he's an English poet, and Coleridge mind is the safe side of us. It's our ego. It's the voice that cares about protecting you, that actually cares about what others think of you. And that voice doesn't want you to do anything. Just stay still, stay put, be that nice little girl, and just don't do anything crazy. And then on the other hand, there's that tiny voice that's called Keats. And that voice is about doing something that you feel as something unique. And it's the battle between those two voices. So once I was able to listen to that tiny voice, I heard that need to help freelancers. And I mean, the idea of SoHo Places is pretty obvious. When you work from home and you enjoy working from home and you don't want to pay $500 in a co-working space, where do you go when you need to meet people?
Well, that's what was going to be my question. What is the difference between what you've built, SoHo Places, and some of the
WeWork,
other
right?
WeWork,
Yeah,
right? Some of those things.
So the experience is completely different. First of all, what I wanted is to have a flexible space. I don't want to pay $500, and I don't want to get into a Starbucks or a hotel lobby.
Right.
So at SoHo Places, it's a retail store. It's not an office. You don't have to go in the elevator and sign up. You just walk in, and it's very flexible. You pay by the hour. to
Do you
reserve
walk
a
in and say,
seat.
"Hey, I need this space
You
for
can,
1 hour," like on the spot? You don't even have to like. Can you book ahead or how?
You can we are using Facebook Messenger. We didn't want to have another app with a login, and so you just do Facebook Messenger and you chat with a bot. You book a seat, you take the time of the day, you get a QR code, and you're done.
So you can book it for yourself or for a meeting.
Yes, yes.
And what are the rates?
It's $6 an hour.
Wow.
And
For
it-
your own seat.
for one seat per person, and it includes coffee from Birch Coffee.
Oh my God.
The best coffee.
I'm
in
gonna
the
go,
city.
go for the coffee.
I know that's a Birch coffee costs like $6. So it's so
Coffee,
1
tea, and
hour,
Wi-Fi.
same as. Wow.
And we have so the place is soundproof. I wanted
That's what I was going to ask, because I think the challenge is when you're freelancing is that you need to make calls sometimes. And so,
Exactly.
like, do you have that personal private space to make
So we have pods of
Yep.
two, or open table with monitor for those who have computers and just want to have more space. But it's soundproof. Everything has been designed with quiet in mind.
And you're only in SoHo right now.
Where we just
That's your
opened.
first,
We just opened. I have no idea where we're going, but so far we've had really tremendous feedback. Tonight is a launch party. I was expecting 30. I have 100 people registered. I don't think I have enough food, so I'm kind of
That's a
freaking
good
out.
Problem to
That's a good
have.
problem.
Yeah.
We also have artists. I'm a big fan of art and artists. I think they're very brave. And so we showcase a couple of local artists, and we have 2 tonight. And we're going to, every month we want to switch,
It's fabulous.
and just to show people's art.
Well, if you could open on the Upper East Side next where I
Yes.
live, that would be great.
I already had people asking for it.
I do work out of home a lot, but I find that I don't love working from home, because even if you don't work with that person, just the social interaction of being around other human beings and having to shower
Energy,
and
right?
put clothes on, put a little makeup on, and go into the offices.
You mean you don't always look like this, Morgan?
I wake up like this.
Okay.
Did you see The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel?
No, I
Oh
didn't.
my God, it's really good. Anyway, in the middle of the night before her husband wakes up, she's like a 1950s housewife. She like gets up 30 minutes before him, puts makeup on, and fixes her hair. That's what
Hashtag I
do.
woke up like this.
That's what I do.
So Virginie, tell us about the entrepreneurial journey. Is it hard?
It is super hard. It is very, very hard. And again, I'm going back to those 2 voices. One voice says, why? First of all, have you ever done it? And why you? And how much money is going to cost? And what if it doesn't work? And what if people say something bad about you?
And you're doing this outside of your home country, so you have your own obstacles.
Yeah, well, although I moved in '99 from Paris to Silicon Valley, I co-founded a tech company, and I stayed 17
Oh,
years.
you're a
So I'm kind of-
you're
I'm
very
actually
brave.
more American than French now.
Oh, we love that. We'll take you.
Yeah.
So-
We want everyone like you too.
One of the things that interested me is that I think it was 1.3 million freelancers in New York, and with the way the millennial generation is working, I think that freelance number is even going to increase.
Yes.
Yeah. So what is your message, New York City, to the 1.3 million freelancers about using your space?
Actually, it's bigger than that. There are,
really?
by 2020, we're going to have 40% of the American population being freelancers.
40%.
That's 60
Future
million.
work, Morgan. I hear it all the time. Yeah.
60 million adults. What's interesting is it's either millennials or baby boomers. And that's really the people that we drive in our place.
And baby boomers are maybe perhaps on a second career, or they've retired and want to do something more interesting, which I think is wonderful.
So your space isn't just for millennials; it's for everyone.
Yeah, well, absolutely. They have so much to give. I mean, if you're 60, 65, how much experience have you had acquired and able to give?
Absolutely.
So yeah, for freelancer, I think it's just we're getting, and so what's interesting in SoHo, we can see the various community. We have a lot of filmmakers and graphic designers and fashion recruiters, people who wants to find other like-minded individual, but also wants a quiet place to think.
What about people who are, and I've got a couple friends in New York working in startups right now and are just starting from the ground up. What about startups? Can you bring in, 5 people to come in and rent the various rooms, or is this more for individuals?
You'll have to experience. There's no room. It's a big space with pods, 10 pods of 2, and then there's an open space with table. It's not that big. It's 1,600 square foot.
You could go into the open table.
Yes, you can. Yeah, and you can have conversation. You can have phone calls, and there's art, and it's big, and it's inspiring.
Well, you got me at the free coffee.
Birch coffee, the best coffee.
Exactly. I'll do anything for free coffee.
Oh, good.
Or free wine.
You're welcome. You can come tonight to the launch party, or you can come anytime. We're open 7 days a week,
nice.
from 8 a.m. to 7 p.m. And we're inviting every host of meetups. Meetups.
Of course.
We're inviting them, and they can use our space for free.
Absolutely. So
I have a meetup to talk about this book, and last month I had to pay $100 from my pocket just to have 8 people and a conversation about something that matters to me. I just can't do it.
Well, you're certainly addressing the need of where, as you said, the future of the workforce. And 2020 is not that far away. 40% of America is going to be freelance. It's not even the future. You're addressing a current need right now.
Right, exactly. And I think people don't want to go to the office. It's the time has changed. You can do your work anywhere. And it's about driving people from the online and giving them a community.
It's amazing.
Virginie, SoHo Places, check it out. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Absolutely, and that does
So
it for
nice to
this
meet you.
edition for Bold Business. We want to send a special thank you. It's so fun having you on.
I'm sad that it's over already. I
Well,
thought
you're coming back
thought we
next
had
week,
more to
right?
do. Definitely. And I have some really cool friends coming on next week with some cool stories.
Well,
So
it's always a pleasure to have
Gotta
you
tune
on,
in.
and it's a pleasure to have you all tune in.
Thank you.
A big thanks to our hardworking staff at Gen FKD Bookster and Bold TV who make this show happen every week. And us two right here, you see us, see these faces? One much prettier face than the
No,
other?
not true.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll be here Tuesday at 9 a.m. with a whole new lineup of guests. And of course, you can always catch Carrie Sheffield and Clay Aiken this Friday at 10 a.m. on our Friday show here on Bold TV. See you soon.